It's time to pick up our cameras and enter the forest, because in RedWood that is exactly what we're gonna do, because we are wildlife photographers going into the beautiful areas in the woods to try to take the best pictures of animals, but also of flowers and trees and so on. And in this video I am gonna show you how you do exactly that. So please sit down and take a cup of coffee or water or whatever you want to, and let's take a look at this pretty game. First thing we need to do is to place the board in the center of the table. This will be the forest that we will enter to take pictures. Next we need to sort up the panorama cards according to their colors. The colors being this border running alongside the bottom of the cards. As you can see below these colors there are also a triangle. The white side here is the basic side, while the other side with the black triangle is the harder side. And it is of course recommended that you start your first game with the white side. Once we have sorted these up according to their colors, we need to take these decks of cards and place them out around the board. And we place them where the border color matches up with the border circling the play area on the board. Meaning that the yellow one with dots should be above the yellow placement on the board with yellow dots. And the gray one here with the stripes goes above the gray stripe. And that's the way we keep on going until we have placed all these decks around the play area. Now you need to choose a sunrise card at random. These sunrise cards here will show you how to set up the board during the game that you are about to play. We pick one at random. This one here, for example. Now this card here will give you some information. It will show you where and what animal will go out on the board. It will show you where to put the objective cards, and it will also show you where the sun will start during this game. Next we need to sort out the objective cards. This here is the back side of the objective cards. As you can see they have numbers going from 1 to 5. We need to draw one card from each of these different stacks at random, and then place them out around the board. Remember that we need to look at the sunrise cards to know where the different objective cards will be put out around the board. In this case, one is up here, meaning this space here. The first objective cards will be put faced up, while the others will be put face down. Next we need to place out the sun on the panorama card indicated by the sunrise card. In this one, it's the yellow. So we put out the sun. Just make sure that you do not hide any of the photography symbols on the top card. Next we need to put out some animals on the board. If we look at the board we can see that there are some holes in it. And this is the spot where animals would go. To see which animal goes where, we again need to look at the sunrise cards. As you can see there are numbers here corresponding to the animals on the side. These numbers and these animals will tell you where they go out on the board. So in this case here, for example, number 1 would be a little beaver and would be placed all the way over here. The animals that we put out on the board has this little hexagonal little square on the back. The other animals in this game does not have this. Do not confuse them with each other. We need to place the little animal with the little hexagonal square on the back out on the board according to the sunrise card. And you can of course orient them in any way you would like to. So that was the first animal, and now we need to do the rest. Then we need to create a supply of move templates but also shot templates. We will use these to be able to move and take pictures out on the board. We also need to create a general supply of trees and suns, flowers, animals, pine cones, and put the string next to the table. Next, each player takes 2 of the same miniature and put in front of them. These will be your characters out on the board during the game. we need to select a first player at random and give them the first player token. Now, starting with the last player going counterclockwise, each player gets to put out one of their little figures on this sign spot on the board. Of course, the spot that you put your miniature on needs to be available. Your miniature needs to cover this little symbol completely. Once the last player have placed there, we go counterclockwise and the other players get to place there as well. So now we have done the setup. We got animals in the forest, we got our little photographer here on the board, of course. We got the different objectives, we know what we're gonna do, and it's time for us to play the game and take some pretty pictures of animals. Now, each game of RedWood lasts for 5 rounds. During your turn, you will go through 3 different steps. First, you will choose one of these templates. A template that you will use to take a picture, but of course also a template that you will use to actually move. Once you have chosen a template, you will first move, and then you will take the shot. So the first thing we do is to choose a move template, and also a shot template. And this is quite an important step, because this is where you plan ahead to really try to figure out how you are gonna move to get the most out of your pictures, because you want to have as much flowers, but of course also animals in your picture as possible. But you also want to have the correct background so you can get the perfect landscape to put these animals in. So there are quite a few things to think about here. Once you have chosen a move template and a shot template, you need to lay them down in front of you immediately. And once you have touched any of these templates, you may not change your mind. At the start of the game, you of course can only take templates from the general supply, because no one else have taken any templates yet. But in future turns, you may take templates from the other players as well. Meaning that if they have used any shot or movement templates that they now have in front of them, you can take it from there instead of taking it from the general supply. But for each template that you take from the other player, they would get a pine cone. And these pine cones are victory points at the end of the game. And you cannot choose to take any templates that you have in front of yourself that you have used in previous turns. Meaning that once you have used these templates, well, you put them in front of you, but you cannot use them one more time. But the other players can. Meaning that in future turns, you would need to take either from the supply or from the other players. And simply leave the ones that you have used to either other players or where they are. Once you have chosen your templates, we need to use them. And the first thing you need to use is the movement template. Because during your turn, you need to move your figure out on the board. This is not optional. To move your figure around, we need to connect the movement tool to your figure with this side here. We do that by simply clicking in the movements tool into the mini. And now we can twist and turn this one around. And simply put it wherever we would like our miniature to go. Over here, for example, or maybe here, or all the way over here. It's all up to you. You cannot, however, move past the line of the board, meaning that you would need to stop your movement here and not continue outside of the board. The arc of the movement template, however, is allowed to leave the edge of the board. When you are trying to find out where you are gonna land, your movement tool may not cover any other players or any animals. Other than that, you are pretty much free to put it wherever you would like to. Once you have chosen where you would like to end your movement, you need to take your other miniature and put it on the spot at the edge of the movement tool. And then simply remove the movement tool. Now you have done your movement. And once we have done our movement, we take back the other miniature that we did not move during this turn and put in front of us. And the movement template that we have just used also goes in front of us. And remember, during our next turn, we are not allowed to use this. Now, the second step of your turn would be to take this template now instead, to get the picture. To take our shot, we pretty much do the same as we did with the movement. But now we need to connect the shot template instead. And twist this around until we have found the shot that we would like to take. Now, to capture your picture, you need to go through some different steps. The first one is to choose your orientation, meaning where you would like this template to stop. Once we have chosen our orientation of this template, we need to determine what background the picture will have. So once we have determined our orientation, we also need to determine the background of the picture that we are taking. To do that, we need to follow this line to see where it will end up. In this case here, it would be the gray area, meaning that we need to take the top card from the gray panorama cards, as this is now your background of your picture. If you are ever unsure where the line actually ends up in the different areas, you would use the string to determine where the final destination would be. If the panorama picture you are gonna take has the sun token on it, you would also need to place a sun on the background that you are receiving, because you are taking a picture directly at the sun. Meaning that you should take one of these small suns from the supply and put it on the picture itself. If any of these panorama piles ever runs out, you can no longer take a picture against this background. If the direction of your shot template is ever pointed at the road sign here, you can actually choose between the two different backgrounds that are on each side of the sign. Meaning that in this case here, you could choose between the blue and the yellow. Once you have taken your shot and determined the background, you take the card that became the background of your photo and place it down in front of you. Now remember that we had these spots on the cards. Well, this is where you would place any animals, flowers or trees that you have been able to get into your shot. So in this case here, for example, you have managed to take a picture of a raccoon, but also a flower that we can see here beneath. Meaning that in this case here, we should place one flower and one raccoon on your card. We take the raccoon and the little flower tokens and put them on our cards. And now we have taken our picture for this time. If we would have managed to get another thing into the picture, we would have put it on the last available spot. But now we are done with this background and we will not touch this anymore. This will be in front of us to the end of the game from now on. The next time you take a new picture, you would place the new card next to the one you have already taken. In this way you are making a panorama picture. But you need to keep a little eye on the colors in the bottom corners of these cards, because as you can see there are different colors on these cards. And at the end of the game you will score if you manage to connect the same colors in your pictures. During your gameplay you also need to keep an eye on these objective cards, because here you have the possibility to score some more pine cones. In this case here, for example, it says that if you manage to get any object within the holes of your shot template, you will score 1 pine cone. And if you manage to get this little flower here into the picture, you would also score another pine cone. When you manage to get an item into one of these holes of your shot template, it is called that you get a perfect photo. But you can only get this once per turn. And you can only get 1 pine cone for this perfect photo once per turn. Meaning that if you manage to get 2 objects into the 2 holes, you will only score 1 pine cone. The last step of your turn is to move any animals out on the board that you have taken a picture of. Meaning that you only move animals if you have managed to take a picture of that animal. And this makes sense. I mean, you're in the quiet forest, you pick up your camera and you snap a picture. The little animal would probably hear the sound and run away. Each of these animals out on the board have their preferred areas. And now you need to move them to one of these areas. In this case here, we managed to take a picture of the raccoon. Meaning that first we need to retrieve our little shot template and put it in front of us. And now we need to move this little animal here. Its preferred areas are the yellow one and the gray one. And we can take this up and place it in any of the available spots that we have, in any orientation if we would like to. If all these holes in its preferred areas would be covered by animals, we would need to choose another area to place it in. If all of this animal's tokens from the general supplies would have been used, we would not replace this animal, as you cannot take any more pictures of it. And that is your turn. First you choose a template, one to move and one to take the picture of. Then you move your little miniature out on the board. Next you would take a picture. Decide which background you will have on your picture and hopefully manage to get some nature or animals into your picture. And place that picture in front of you with those tokens on. Last thing you do is to move any animals that you have taken a picture of. And then the turn would go on to the player on your left. And this is the way the turns of the players would go on. And when we need to change a new round, we would move the sun. Once all the players have taken their turn, we need to move the sun one step to the next panorama card. And we also need to flip over the objective 2 card, indicating that now we are in round 2. Once we flip over the 5th and final objective card, we go into the final round. And once we have finished this one, we go into end of game scoring. In the end of game scoring, we first need to see how many different types of animals we have. If we have 2 types of different animals, we would get 1 pine cone. But if we have 3 types of different animals, we would instead get 3 pine cones. For 5 different we would have 10 pine cones, for 6 different we would have 15, and lastly for 7 different animals you would get 21 pine cones. So it's quite important for you to try to get different animals into your picture. Then we would also need to see how many times we have been able to connect the right colors on your panoramas. If you have 1 connection you would get 3 pine cones. But if you have 2 you would get 6, 3, 10 and 4, 15. And then we would also need to count the suns that we have on our pictures. If you don't have any sun, you would of course get 0. But if you have 1, you would get 4 pine cones. But if you have 2 suns on your panorama pictures, you would get a -2 pine cones. And we also need to count the flowers. For each flower on your panorama cards, you would get 1 pine cone. The player with the highest score becomes the winner of the game. And that, my friend, is how you play RedWood. This here is a nice little game where you simply go out in nature trying to take the best pictures of animals and flowers to make the best panoramas. There are not too many conflicts here. I mean, there might be a player standing in your way, but there's never really any player conflicts. You are pretty much trying to do the best picture that you possibly can. And there is a solo mode here as well. In a solo game, you would play the game just as I've shown you now. Of course, it will only be your figures out on the board. And you would need to use specific objective cards, because there are different scenarios for the solo players, where you have different objectives that you need to reach to be able to finish the game. This is a nice little game. It doesn't really feel like you're competing with anybody, because you're pretty much just trying to get the perfect picture, which is not that easy. I mean, you really need to plan ahead if you want to get the perfect picture. If you want to get as many animals as possible into your picture, but also the flowers, the sun, and not getting 2 suns, and really planning ahead to be able to get the shot that you need to get the extra pine cones and win. It's a bit harder than it looks like, actually, but it is a quite enjoyable game. And there you have it, my friend. That was the video for today. RedWood, a nice little friendly competition game, really for the whole family. You can play it with kids, you can play it with friends, family, whatever. It's a nice little game where you just sit down and enjoy the nature really. It's quite cool. If you want to know more, well, take a look at the links down in the description and it will take you straight to this game. If you like the video, why not subscribe to the channel, maybe give me a comment or a like. But most importantly, my friend, please keep on remember to spread that board gaming love I know you all have. Peace.